My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. If you're interested in UFC fight picks, DraftKings lineup, and MMA insight, this is the channel for you. Today, I am joined with Dan Kramer, UFC vet, Ultimate Fighter vet, Bellator vet, and Jacob Lines, who's just a skinny kid from Indiana. So what we're going to do today is we're going to walk through last week's UFC Fight Night Condit versus Brown lineup. Then we're going to touch on Wednesday's lineup with Magny versus Chiesa. And we're going to go into some solid picks, some DraftKings lineups, betting odds, and just give you everything that you need to know if you're just looking to watch or if you're looking to put some money or if you want some really solid DraftKings insight. So let's pull up Saturday's DraftKings lineup. So if you guys don't know, share my screen here. If you guys don't know, myself, everybody in this chat, and a bunch of others are in a DraftKings league. And every week we put money on the line, both in DraftKings and ridiculous side bets that should not happen. And we bet each other and we go head to head. So what I want to do is let's look at Dan's making this ridiculous hand gesture because he happened to win, just an absolute fluke. He's not very good at this at all. So let's look at last week. It was a very unique card because there were
perfect segue for that.
Yeah, well, it was a couple of giant underdogs showed up, but Dan, I will let you talk about just the absolute luck that you stepped in, considering you scored 650 points and the next closest was 513. So just, okay. I have your lineup pulled here. Obviously, Holloway Qatar is obvious, but touch on some of these other ridiculously lucky picks that you had.
So, yeah, I happen to keep getting lucky every week, feels like, in this league. So, last week was, one of my strongest weeks. But just for the record, if Angelo pulls up the league standings, you'll see that I'm in first place there. But no, all kidding aside, last week was a great week. Real simple kind of how I went through my lineup. I put a little bit of research in, watched some tape on the guys, but Holloway and Qatar, knew that was going to be a 5-round battle, figured a lot of points would come from both guys, had no idea Holloway was going to put up over 200. But I kind of saw the fight going similar to the way it went in terms of points. So that was an easy double up. Holloway was more expensive. Qatar was cheap at 7,300. You blend the two, it's, whatever, around 8,000. Great value for both fighters and a bunch of points. Condit I took, that was a tough one because I really like Matt Brown. I was pulling for him to win, actually. To be honest, I would have sacrificed my win in the league for Brown to get the win. But I just figured that would also be a battle. And, Condit being a few years younger, having fought, I think, a little bit more recently, I thought, the 3-4 year age difference might be the deciding factor. So I took Condit on that one. Jing Lang, honestly, I did not think he was going to win, but in DraftKings, you got to take some lower priced options. And I thought he would be competitive against Ponzinibbio. Ponzinibbio was coming off of, I think, a 2-year hiatus, injuries and all that. So whenever you come off a long layoff like that, you're not always going to be at your best. So those things combined, I was like, you know what, let me throw $6,900 at Jing Lang, see what I get out of it. He ended up scoring the knockout, so that was a huge come from behind win. And then the last two, I took Akhmedov. I thought he was just going to dominate that one. $9,200, ended up getting 93 points. And then Lingo too. He was a pretty skilled fighter. I thought he was just a step ahead of Kilburn, so I took him at the 9,000, and it turned out to be a great week.
Yeah, I mean, I think this Jing Lang pick was the solid pick. I think this was the differentiator for you because obviously you won by more than 100 points. So it's not just one fighter that did it for you. But the Jing Lang one, nobody had that. Nobody.
I was expecting him to get 30 or 40 points and a loss. I thought
I picked Jing Lang.
No, and
where are you? Where are you?
Yeah,
he's fourth.
By
the way, top 3 get money. Jacob consistently gets fourth somehow.
Consistent. That's what's important. Consistency is key.
Yeah, I mean, that lineup was killer. Literally, the only reason you have a loss is because you grabbed Calvin, you doubled up the main, which I think everybody in the league except poor Casey, dead last, doubled up in the main. So
it's
good
impressive
lineup.
though. He got 138 points with 6 fighters. I think that
5 fighters. 5.
That's why? Because he missed one.
Yeah. So anybody watch that card? Phil Hawes dropped the same day. So this is a COVID world. DraftKings. If you're going to take anything from this at all, the thing you should take from is 20 minutes before a card starts, pull up the app, run through your lineup, and make sure there were no drops. We have seen over the last 9 months, I've never seen this many drops in my entire life, but over the last
9 2 minutes before the card, or 30 minutes into the card.
Yeah, that one was like 5 minutes.
Yeah, one was into the card, remember? But DraftKings refunded us that money, but that dude backstage passed out, and that fight just didn't happen. But any advice we could give you is definitely check your lineup 20 minutes before the card starts. Don't change it if you don't need to, because that's where you really screw yourself. But make sure there's not a drop and you didn't miss anything. Nick Newell took third. He did third with only 5 fighters. So he had a solid.
And really only 4 with Buckley.
And actually, that's a good point. Jesus, how the hell did he do that? He did get third with
Jing Lang pick. That's the big one.
Jing Lang is the big one, and obviously Condit, and he doubled up.
Well, Condit's the one that let him pass me because I had he was 80 points behind me, and then he got the win from Condit. So that decision I wasn't real happy with.
What's super annoying too is I had Phil Hawes. He was streaking. He looked great, and he dropped not because of COVID. They didn't say why, but they specifically said it wasn't COVID. But he dropped, and I could have replaced him with Condit. And like an idiot, I replaced him with Todorovic, who just absolutely crapped the bed. So that did me no favors. And, it is what it is. So we won the highlight last week. We are in a league with each other. The amount of people that join every week, it varies. This week will be a full stack 20 for Connor. But
Angela, are you able to pull up the league standings? Just curious.
You know what? I think
I would vote against that, please.
I think my computer's broken. That's just.
I wouldn't try it.
The bandwidth issue with the amount of points I have.
I wouldn't try it.
There's just all sorts of weird issues.
I wouldn't try it. I would not try it.
Oh, there it is, leaderboard. Wow, there I am, right at the top. Okay, look at that.
All right, so Dan's been lucky.
Look at the dollar amounts there. $903.
So
IRS is coming now.
We do $20 league. $20 contests. It's just for fun. The real money is the side betting where we will bet each other, hey, $50, my lineup's gonna be better than yours. But
and you don't want to see that one. It's
that
just
one,
bad.
You don't want to see my Venmo. But,
I could post the Venmo history. That would be funny.
So Dan is leading. So this is a fresh start. You can't in DraftKings. I can't erase this and just start fresh with 2021. But this is basically a recap of 2020 is when we started this league here. We've got quite a few people in it, and some join, some don't, consistently. But anyway, Dan's has 8 wins, which is just absurd. Nick Newell, I somehow have far more points than him, but I feel like he's in the money every single week. And actually,
all about the dollars. Filter to the dollars. Let's see.
And I'm going to say, and here it is. He's won more money than I have, but I have more points. And DraftKings it's a real cockamamie. If I click
can
here,
you click on prizes? Will it sort?
Yeah, click prizes. It should sort it top to bottom.
Yeah, well, there we go.
There I am, still up there. There's Newell.
Yeah, so all right, dude, Casey in 4th. Boy, this is really embarrassing for you, Jacob.
Well, that's why it looks better with the prizes. I'm fine with that. Don't sort it back the way it was.
But we've started
I have perfect attendance.
We've
perfect attendance.
That's worth something, right?
27, only 4 of us, and you're in 4th.
You going for like most improved? You're one of those guys. Like at the end of the year, you get most improved.
There we go. I was most improved in golf, so.
So we started a league for you guys. If you guys want to join, and as this channel grows and as more and more people join, we'll figure out prizes. If you can beat us, all of us, we'll work out some prizes and things like that. But we started a league. I'll post a link in the comments in the description so you can hop into that and compete against us every week, and we'll chat about it.
And we are winging this for the record, so we'll see how it goes.
Angela, so
it'll probably improve every week, but Angela's the brains behind the operation. Me and Jacob just show up and do our picks.
All right, so let's take a look at. So we've established that Dan was very incredibly lucky last week. Let's look at Wednesday's card. So it's a weird week. UFC's back, 3 cards. Wednesday's card is at like 8 o'clock in the morning. A couple decent fights, a lot of unknowns, a lot of new guys, but a lot of competitive matchups. And I think there's a solid amount of live underdogs here. So let's walk through this lineup. We'll touch on each fight, what those matchups look like, and we'll each hit on some solid underdog picks. The reason we're going to do that is A, if you want to throw some money at a crazy underdog, that's on you. And B, betting on who's going to win, picking winners, and also building DraftKings lineups are not the same thing. In DraftKings, you have a budget. You're going to need to scoop up a dirt cheap fighter. Dan got lucky as hell last week with a $6,900 fighter scoring 100 points, but that's what we're looking for. So it's DraftKings is a different animal. We'll touch on that in a minute, but let's walk through these fights. It's a big fight card, a 14-fight card. Listen, guys, I personally don't know every single one of these, and I'm not going to pretend I do. So, for those, I'll skip over. But if you know one of the fighters or the matchup and have some insight, let me know. And we're just going to start from the bottom and work our way up. So opening the card on Fight Island is Victoria Leonardo versus Manon Fiorot. I happen to know Leonardo. My opinion is this fight, I'm going to go with Manon. Listen, don't judge.
We are going to butcher some names here.
Pronunciation.
Starting right off the bat. I think you put an L in there. I don't think there's an L in her last name, but I think you called her Fiorot.
Yeah, Fiorot.
It's an I.
I think that's an I. Yeah. It's a lowercase I. It's all right. Go ahead.
Oh, that's a lowercase. All right, Fiorot. Anyway, what's interesting about this fight is the opening odds. Leonardo was almost a 2-1 favorite. And the odds have completely shifted. And actually, let's pop over here and look. The odds have completely shifted. And now Fiorot is almost a 2-1 favorite. So that's an interesting one. And I trust the people. The people know what they're talking about. And the reason odds shift for anybody that doesn't bet consistently is Vegas says, we think this person's going to win. So that's why they're a 2-1 favorite. And then the money starts pouring in. And as the money comes in, Vegas changes the odds. So the fact that these odds have shifted, and I happen to know for a fact, Victoria Leonardo is good at everything or okay at everything, but not an expert at anything, where Fiorot, she is a great striker with phenomenal kicks, great range, and she's going to light up your legs and really use her legs to dictate the fight. And I think she takes this. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you guys have any insight on this?
Go ahead, Dan. If you've, I watched tape on both of them.
Yeah. I watched a little tape. I agree with a lot of things you said. I think Leonardo is really tough. She's solid everywhere. Fiorot also very tough. I think she's 5-1, right? 5-1. Yeah. So I watched some tape on her. She looks good. She's really tough, physical, looks to have good wrestling, solid striking. And I think she's improving every fight. But I think the big factor here is the physicality. She looks really strong, aggressive, and again, young, up and coming, improving. So I'm going to give her the edge, but I'm probably not going to put it in my DraftKings lineup just because I think both fighters are really durable, and I'm not 100% sure which way it's going to go. But if I had to pick, I'd go with Fiorot.
All right, Jacob. So Dan and I both seem to be leaning towards Fiorot. DraftKings tends to be smarter than the odds makers. So the odds makers opened up with Leonardo being a big-time favorite. DraftKings has her at $7,300 and Fiorot $8,900. So they came out of the gate. They knew that this was a much better fight than what Vegas was saying. You think Fiorot's worth the money? What does your analysis say? Who do you think's going to win that fight?
So I'm going opposite of you guys based on what I saw in the 30 seconds of film I watched on both fighters. Because you guys said you watched some film. When I was watching Fiorot, the 30 seconds I watched, so maybe it was just a random 30 seconds, she looked very quick, very agile, but she looked wild. You guys see like some wildness out of her? Like I'm talking like just throwing like not covering up, just throwing wild stuff.
But wild matters. Wild is a problem if you're fighting a wrestler because you get wild in on the legs. That's it. You're down. And wild's a problem if you're fighting a just laser striker that's just gonna, your overhand's too high, bang, right up the middle.
So and then so
that's not gonna happen with Leonardo.
So to touch on that, and I was going to ask you, since you know where I just watched the film I watched, the fight I watched, she's kind of just head down, marching forward, not afraid to get hit, which seems like she'd get in the pocket with Fiorat or whatever the name we've decided that is. And then the fight I saw too, she was wrestling and she was taking advantage of her jiu-jitsu, and I think she
Leonardo.
Yeah. I think she had won by submission or was close to winning by submission.
And she's had more than one fight where she was getting pummeled. And
she looks tough. I mean, tough.
Yeah, and ended up on top and won the fight.
Yeah, Leonardo, I think, was losing her last fight, and she fought a really good striker, but ended up getting her to the ground and getting the finish.
So in my opinion, if you're looking for an underdog, she could have value there at 7,300. If she's tough, she's going to stay forward. Even when she was getting hit back. If there's a scramble,
you might be right on the value there.
She could end up on top. That's how I saw it.
Value-wise, and then this is where this reinforces the point. Betting and DraftKings lineups are not the same thing. For $7,300, maybe she's worth throwing into a DraftKings lineup. I would never put actual money on her in a real fight. And listen, I'm not touching Fiorat in my DraftKings lineup, not for $8,900. $8,900 to me is like, you're definitely winning this fight and probably stopping somebody. Not she's got very good striking and the other one's just okay.
Jacob, you going to put Leonardo in your lineup?
Dan, we're going to have to wait and see.
Okay. All right.
I think there's good value.
All right. Well,
that's a good point.
As this goes on and people see your lineups over time.
Yeah. The suspense is not really warranted.
So the next fight is a Nurmagomedov. I think it's Khabib's cousin.
I think it's his cousin.
Yeah. A Nurmagomedov versus Sergey Morozov. This is another one. So listen, that last name carries some weight. Just like Gracie's did in the early 90s, Nurmagomedov's carry some weight today, right? If you were a Gracie in the early 90s, didn't matter which one, didn't matter what your record was or what you looked like. It was a guarantee you were great on the ground, that you were going to do some things. Nurmagomedovs have the exact same reputation, but with wrestling. This Nurmagomedov's a little different. He's a heavy wrestling base.
And this is flyweight or featherweight? Or strawweight?
This is 135.
Bantamweight. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is grappler versus striker, very traditional matchup. My opinion, so nobody's as good as Khabib. So honestly, when you look at brothers in MMA or relatives, cousins, whatever it is, you got to separate them. And Figueiredo's on this card. His brother's a champion right now in that division. So you got to separate them. Standing on his own legs, Umar is a solid grappler. He doesn't finish well. He's 12-0. I think he only has 4 finishes. So he's not a finisher. He will take you down. He will lay on top of you. But his wrestling is very different than Khabib, where I feel like Umar has more confidence in his hands. So he will throw hands for a little longer. He's not relying on the cage for his takedowns. He'll just shoot in open cage, where Khabib comes in, pushes you against the cage, and then he'll touch anything and then transition until he gets you down, whether that's 2 transitions or 10, he'll work off the cage and he'll get you there. Umar will just shoot, and it's working for him. He's 12-0. If you dig into that 12-0, which I'm not going to dig in too much here, but if you dig into that 12-0, a lot of these were gifts, right? A lot of these were set up for him.
And they're decisions.
They're decisions, and they were gifts. They were set up for him to win, and he won. So
but he didn't win very convincingly. I mean, those should be, in my mind, those should be at least TKOs. If somebody's giving you gifts like that.
I agree. So let's talk about Morozov, or I'll talk about Morozov very quickly. Great striker. His striking is far superior than Umar. He's aggressive, and he has solid takedown hips, meaning anybody out there who's wrestled, you know this. His hips are in the right place when they're supposed to be in the right place. As soon as level is lowered, his hips come back, and then his hands go where they need to be. And the hips are the most important part. I think for the price, let me look up the price here very quickly.
$6,700.
$6,700. He's in my lineup. For the price, I think he's an underdog that will do it. And at the very least, when we're talking DraftKings lineups, at the very least, I don't think he's going to get stopped. And if I can get somebody to survive and keep the other person's points down and make some things happen, that's what I'm going to go for. And very quickly before I hand it over to you, Dan, the DraftKings rules have changed. Control time is a factor. So that does favor an Umar if he's just going to take you down and hang out. That's 20-something points that didn't exist a month ago. But I am hoping that the solid hips and the better striking gets Umar taking some really crappy shots and then eventually caught, with an uppercut or something like that.
Yeah, so I watched a little tape on both these guys, not much, but I think I got kind of the picture based off their last couple fights. But the first thing I noticed was they both have not fought in over a year. So Nurmagomedov is undefeated. He trains with Khabib. He's got to be getting better. I'm sure that camp is getting better with the notoriety that Khabib has. Obviously he's got the good wrestling. I watched a little bit of his striking. He looks to be pretty light on his feet. It's almost more like a karate style a little bit. But when he got the takedowns in his last couple fights, top control was really solid, ground and pound, and ended up getting the rear naked choke in his last fight. Morozov, I watched a little tape on him too. Looks to be a really good striker, solid fighter, to be honest, but they both haven't fought in a year. I got to imagine Nurmagomedov has been training really hard, probably wrestling a lot. Morozov too, I'm sure has been training hard, but I mean, Nurmagomedov's negative 400. I'm just not going to touch this one for DraftKings. I see what you're saying, Angelo. He's got some value, but I think sometimes, when the UFC wants to get behind a fighter and the odds are in his favor and he's got the wrestling, I think it's a recipe for him to win. I wouldn't be surprised if Morozov pulled something off, just being as skilled and having as much experience as he does. But I'm not going to touch this one for DraftKings.
Well, and I didn't. Well, now I'm annoyed because that year layoff, which I didn't get into. The year layoff definitely.
We've all made an agreement, by the way, that after we do this, we can't change our lineups because all of a sudden Angelo's lineups are going to start looking really similar to mine in the next couple of weeks.
So, my only issue with the year layoff. So I stand by everything I said, but a year layoff for a striker is very different than a year layoff for a grappler. And the reason is timing is everything with striking. Everything. And unless you're in a fight and fighting consistently or training, consistently, you're going to lose that timing, right? You're going to misjudge some things. Wrestlers, I'm a wrestler. I've managed professional fighters for a long time. It's very easy to remember how to wrestle. It's very easy. Yeah, maybe you have a bad shot, but a bad shot on the legs is still a shot on the legs, and he'll finish that. The year layoff, after you mentioned that does worry me a little bit because a heavy striker who hasn't fought in a year, his timing might be off, and hopefully he's not worried about the takedown, just sitting back and waiting. Jake the Snake, what are your did you touch this? You know anything about these two?
I know that last name. It's very familiar to me. The only thing I will add here, which may be interesting, may be relevant or not, was he was supposed to fight on Khabib's card in October, that Gagey card, and he was actually hospitalized with staph infection in October. That was late October. So I don't know how long. You guys might know more about if that could last longer, if that was going to be fixed in a week, if that lingered. I have no idea. I'm all about the ins and outs and weird stuff you can find. And I just know that he was literally hospitalized from with staph infection in October. So could have affected his training. We don't know.
I'll show you what hospitalized staph infection looks like. This is what hospitalized staph infection can look like. This is Kevin Randleman. It's the most extreme staph infection I've ever seen in my entire life. But to answer your question, I don't think, Dan, you'd know better than me.
I think it just depends. I mean, sometimes if you're in the hospital, it's pretty serious, but I know guys who've had, King Mo had multiple surgeries. He had staph infection that came back a couple different times. So I think there's just different levels of it. So it sounds like it was pretty bad. I don't know how quickly it went away but I'm assuming if he's taking a fight, he's got to be good to go. So. And
honestly, when you get hospitalized with staph, obviously there are different severities. I mean, Kevin Randleman, literally there was a hole in his body. That's the most extreme staph anybody's ever had. But I would assume Nurmagomedov just let it go, got a fever, and then they realized he had a bad staph infection.
It was fever and vomiting for his.
And then he sat on an IV drip for a few days and then went home. An antibiotic IV drip. So that's a factor. I'm going the other way on that fight, and I'm only going the other way. If I was betting actual money that I earned, I'm not touching it. But in DraftKings, I am going the other way. I don't think the staph plays a role in that 4 months later. All right, so let's touch on Mike Davis versus Mason Jones. I'll be faster on this one. So this is an interesting one.
I usually go to bed, the next 4 hours or so, but
well, I'm asleep already by now. But Mason Jones. Obviously he's undefeated. Anytime somebody's undefeated, it's a little scary because you don't know why they're undefeated. Are they undefeated because they're the next John Jones? Or are they undefeated because they've had some gifts on the local scene before it was time to do things? Mason Jones is a 2-division champion. I think it was Cage Warriors. His boxing is fantastic. He has a ton of power. So Mason Jones is as of now is legit. Mike Davis is interesting because he's a very good fighter. He has a couple of losses, but he lost to Gilbert Burns. So basically everybody's lost to Gilbert Burns so far. So Gilbert Burns will be fighting for a title and may very well be the champion in that division later this year. But what is interesting is Mike Davis is vocal about not liking to fight. He said he didn't want to be a fighter. He became a fighter because he was bullied. So it's not, this isn't who he is necessarily. He's definitely the better wrestler, and the odds shifted in this fight as well. So I mentioned earlier the Victoria Leonardo, those odds shifted. So did this one. This opened with Mike as a pretty big favorite, I think 3-1. And then now it's moved over to Mason Jones being the favorite. Personally, I don't remember if I touched him in my lineup. Personally, I think Mason Jones wins this. I think once you just start talking about I don't really like to fight, but I'm good at it. I think it just changes things, especially when you get in there with a guy like Mason Jones, who not only loves to fight, he is fighting in multiple weight classes at the exact same time to just do as much as possible.
You're up, Jake. I got a good one for this one. I'll go last.
Yeah, I don't know anything about this fight, so I literally didn't look up anything for this fight. I'm looking at it right now, though. The only thing that concerns me when I just glance at someone's record, and I think I touched on it earlier, is Mason Jones. They are Cage Warrior fights, which I assume I hear that name, so I assume it's a pretty good promotion.
Cage Warrior is like the Bellator of England.
Okay. So I see he's undefeated, but I see a lot of decisions in here. So that tells me he might not necessarily be a killer. So you're talking about the other guys kind of got the I'm not a fighter aspect, but this guy might not have the finishing power. The other guy, he's gotten finishes in every single one of his wins. Really, we've got TKOs, we've got submissions, KOs, TKOs. So I don't know anything about this fight. The value, looking at it, 8,800 seems expensive for somebody that doesn't like the fight. I think you mentioned that. And then 7,400 for a 10-0 fighter. That seems like it could be good value to me. I don't know anything about it. Plus 150 is a betting favorite or betting underdog, but undefeated fighter at $7,400. That's kind of eye catching to me. What do you think, Dan?
No, wait, before Dan goes, that's a really good point. $7,400 for who is now the betting favorite. Let's check him out very quickly.
I don't think he's a favorite.
I don't think you're. Yeah, I think you're off
He's
on
a
that
dog.
one. I was gonna.
Oh, you're right. So the odds did shift, but I guess they went from 3-1 down to 1.5-1. But okay, all right. Well, $7,400.
The money's coming in on.
Yeah, the odds are shifting. They have
Jones.
Yeah.
Well, I think everyone probably sees what we see. You see undefeated fighters. You know, it's different with DraftKings, but you see an undefeated fighter as an underdog, and of course you're going to want to throw money at that.
All right, so you guys are good. So Angela, for the record, you're not touching this fight, right? Sounds like. And Jacob,
you'll see my lineup if I didn't mess.
I didn't touch it. I didn't touch it.
If I didn't mess with it already, I won't mess with it after whatever ridiculous insight.
Oh, you didn't touch this one? Okay, but you said Jones looks to be the value pick. Okay, so I am taking Mike Davis in this one. He's, like you said, the -150 to 170 favorite. Trains at ATT. I'm a little biased, but he is a legit good striker. He's athletic. He's tough. You mentioned earlier he fought Gilbert Burns. I think it was a short notice fight. He went back and forth in the first round, got submitted in the second. This kid's good. I watched a little tape on Jones. He's also good, but I just don't think he's on the level of Davis. I'm taking Davis for sure, and I'll pay the whatever it is, $800 for him. I think he's going to dominate this fight and probably get a finish. Jeez,
boy, you're standing on that one. That'll be interesting. Maybe I'll side bet you there. That's interesting. I'm going to need odds though. But that's an interesting. You're like
right. He's the underdog, right? So I'll take the plus money, right?
Just looked at it. Davis is the favorite.
I thought you said he was the underdog. So we'll do.
So next up is Francisco Figueiredo versus Jerome Rivera. Figueiredo is the, I think, older brother of the current champion. They fight in the same division, which is, it's bizarre because they don't normally fight in the same division. Francisco is coming down a weight class to fight in that division. This will be his first fight in that weight class. That's strange. I don't know why I would go out of my way to compete in my brother's weight class, especially when my brother is much, much better than me. But, Figueiredo, I mentioned earlier with the Nurmagomedov, you can't just go by the family name. But there is something to be said about that. In this case, what it does tell me is he's got solid training partner, right? That he's living and breathing this every single day with one of the best guys on the planet that does it. And that's important. Your training partners are very important. He's not as gifted as his brother. He doesn't have the same power, the same speed. He doesn't have the same fight IQ as his brother. But when you're training with somebody at that level every single day, you get better at a different pace than other people. Rivera he has phenomenal jiu-jitsu, but not phenomenal. He has very good jiu-jitsu. He's the better jiu-jitsu practitioner despite their belts. The belts in a point competition are very different than belts in an MMA fight. In an MMA fight, Rivera has the better jiu-jitsu. The problem is his wrestling is not great. So great jiu-jitsu with terrible wrestling is either pulling guard or you get hit with a stiff jab, you fall down, and you wait and hope somebody comes into your guard. So I'm not touching this. What is tricky about this one, I think Figueiredo should win. What is tricky about this one is he hasn't fought in a year, and it's his first fight at flyweight. I don't know what his weight cuts look like historically. I don't know if this is easy or hard for him. I'm not going to touch it, but I do think Figueiredo wins if I had to put money on this. He's just more well-rounded. He's getting better training day in and day out. And Jerome Rivera it's 2021, so nobody's a one-trick pony, but he's closer to a one-trick pony than most. Jake, why don't you go ahead?
Jake, you got anything?
Angelo is very against last name familiarity. I'm very pro. So I would choose this guy just because his last name is Figueiredo.
When you watch sporting events, do you pick like the favorite jersey color? Is that kind of your logic on bets?
I do that all.
He's bet on Dan Miller in every fight ever because Jim is pretty good. How'd that work out for you?
Yeah, so I don't
You're
really
taking
know.
Figueiredo.
Yeah, I really don't have any. Yeah, I in my DraftKings, I didn't touch this fight. I didn't do research on this fight. It just seems like the value there is, if I'm not sure, 8,500 for that and 7,700 for an underdog I don't know anything about. So just a fight I stayed away from completely.
Yeah, so I watched a little tape on both of them again. I usually try to watch at least their last fight. I couldn't find much on Figueiredo, to be honest. It looks like he fought mostly in jungle fights. I'm sure it's out there. If I spent a little time on the internet, I'm sure I could find it. But I saw he's the brother of Davison Figueiredo, so you got to imagine he's from a good camp, training hard, all that good stuff. Rivera, I did watch his last fight. He's long, rangy, unorthodox, switches stances, looks to be really pretty good. Defensively, though, he got dropped by Tyson Nam in his last fight, and you could see the whole first round, Nam was just chasing that overhand right. And literally, he missed a couple times in the first round. In the second round, he finally landed it and put it down. So I'm not touching it for DraftKings. I guess I'll go with Figueiredo based off of the assumption he's training hard with his brother. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure on this one until I do a little more research.
Yeah, I agree. So let's move on to the I don't know if I'm going to be able to pronounce this name. Dalcha Lungumulba versus Marcus Perez. This is cut and dry. I'm straight up going with Dalcha. I mean, he comes out. DraftKings changed their rules or changed the scoring system. A knockout in under 60 seconds scores you 25 extra points. If any fight on this card is going to do it, it's this one. I think he comes out like a bat out of hell. He has crazy power. He's crazy fast, crazy athletic. I absolutely think he pulls it off. They're both strikers, and that's the reason I'm going this direction. They're both strikers, and Dalcha is just that much better, that much faster, that much more power. Marcus Perez's only real chance here is to take it to the ground. Maybe he can weather the storm, but the problem is they're both strikers. So it's not weather the storm and then outpoint him. You weather the storm and then he's still a striker that's better than you. So I think this one's pretty cut and dry. One of the most cut and dry ones on the card, honestly. I'm going Dalcha, and I'm really hoping for that 25-point bonus with an under 60-second knockout. Jacob.
Yeah, we haven't seen that quick knockout bonus yet. That'll be fun for whoever gets that first. I think it was close Saturday on one of those fights, but we still haven't seen it yet. And I would agree with you with Dalcha. I stayed away from this fight, but I'm very unorthodox in my picks. And I saw a picture of that man, and my God, I think this is 185, correct?
Yeah.
And I think he's 5'8", 185 pounds of just ungodly meat. Is just how you got to put it. So if I was going to pick him, it would be based on just looks alone, which I've done in the past. So I would agree with you. He looks like he can definitely get that under minute.
You have to pull up the
25
league
points.
Standings quickly before you start to sway people on your picking techniques.
Maybe Dan has more technical analysis, but that's mine.
Well, I mean, I think ungodly meat, there are probably other terms you could use, but we'll go with that one. No, I agree with you, Angela. I think Dalcha Lungi Ambula, I think I said that right. Probably not. But anyways, I watched some tape on so his fight has been canceled a couple times now due to COVID. And he was supposed to fight. Oh, who was he supposed to fight? He was a heavy underdog. And I watched a little tape on him. First of all, the guys fought at heavyweight and light heavyweight, champion in the league in Africa. I think a pretty legitimate league in Africa. He was the champ, beat the champ in light heavyweight and the heavyweight division. He's now dropping down to 185. He's got really good judo. Like you said, he's freaky powerful. I'm taking him. I'm actually putting some own side bets. I'm doing some bets on sites with him. So, yeah, I'm all over Dalcha. The only thing that I'm slightly concerned about is the weight cut. It's his first time going to 85, I think. And he was jacked at 205. He's jacked at heavyweight. I mean, one of the videos I saw at heavyweight, he literally judo threw another heavyweight over his head. So this dude is good. He's explosive. He's powerful. And Perez is legit too, to be honest. He's good. He's unorthodox. He's a game veteran. I just think Dolce's going to catch him at some point. Perez keeps his hands down a little bit, and his style is, he's not concerned about defense all that much. So I think Dolce's gonna catch him at some point and then get the knockout.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's a fair breakdown. The weight cut is a concern because, and even if he always fought at 85, carrying that much muscle, you sacrifice it somewhere, and it's usually cardio. So
the fights I watched too, I was surprised. He went into later rounds and still looked pretty good.
Really, he didn't. Okay.
No, he still had the explosiveness. Even in some of his UFC fights, he still had that explosiveness in the later rounds, more so than I would have thought for his body type. And
yeah.
But yeah, I'm all over Dolce.
Ungodly meat.
Ungodly meat. Yep.
You might not be able to watch the fights at my house this weekend. The next fight is Sue Murarji versus Zaru.
You nailed that. I honestly think you nailed that.
I mean, I'm sounding these out as much as anybody from the Northeast can do. So the only insight I have here is Adeshev missed weight in his last fight. He's a decent striker. He's 3-2. The problem with 3-2, that's not a great record, obviously, but 3-2, what is that? That doesn't mean anything. Like, that's not enough fights to really determine. That's such a small sample size. We really don't know much about him at all. This is striker versus striker. Adeshev's loss, let's pull it up. It was a short notice loss, his last loss. It was versus Tyson Nam. We're going to touch on Tyson Nam in a minute. That dude has built a career on short notice, on people taking short notice fights. So his last loss is a short notice loss. Like, literally, I forget what it was. It was a couple of days he took that fight on. So this is a full camp. It's striker versus striker. And I think he's actually a very solid underdog. Let me look at the price real quick.
6,900.
Yeah, 6,900 versus 9,300. So $9,300 in DraftKings. That better be. You better score me 100 points. It's a guarantee that you're going to score me 100 points if I'm going to spend that kind of money on you. But for $6,900, again, it's striker versus striker. Styles make fights. If it was grappler versus striker, the grappler is going to win that 9 times out of 10, right? They're just going to shoot, get you down, and that's it. You're a fish out of water. Striker versus striker, and in this case, he happens to have a full camp. For $6,900, that's not necessarily the worst underdog pick that you can have. Dan?
Yeah, I didn't tape a whole lot on this one, but I saw the same thing. 13-4 versus 3-2. There's obviously a big difference in terms of experience. I almost wondered, and again, it might be out there, but if Adashkov, however you say it, if he had kickboxing experience, because generally when you get these guys that are 3-2, 3-1 fighting against another guy who's got 15 plus pro fights, they justify it because he's had, 30 K1 kickboxing fights. So I don't know if that's the case with him, but either way, I'm not touching this. Sue is pretty expensive, and I don't know enough about the other guy to make a play. So, I guess I'll go with Sue just based off the experience, but I'm not touching it for DraftKings.
So very quickly, you are right. He's from Glory Kickboxing. He has a lot of kickboxing experience. His record was like,
relook at it.
It was a good record. He wasn't like 70-0 or something. He was like 15-3 or something like that. So it was a good record. He was a good kickboxer, and he's made his transition to MMA. So you're right. That's the only reason this fight got sanctioned. Otherwise, why would you ever let this fight happen? But it's striker versus striker. Mudarji is also a striker. So, that's why I went my direction.
Is anybody playing this guy? Or is anyone taking either of these guys?
Jacob?
Well, I will tell you that we are talking about 3-2, and Angelo said that that I don't know how this fight got sanctioned. All 3 of his wins were in Bellator, so it wasn't in some weird off regional circuit. They were all Bellator wins, which in my mind seems like it's going to be pretty decent.
But just some insight for you. I love Bellator. Bellator is an awesome promotion. Bellator runs like a small and large promotion at the exact same time. Their main card is a big time promotion with big paychecks and big names. The undercard is local fighters, or they bring somebody in to fight a local fighter to sell tickets and fill the stands. So Bellator undercard wins can be very favorable matchups depending on your situation.
Got it. Okay. So, but I kind of agreed. I think you were talking about he might be a live underdog, especially when you mentioned his kickboxing as well. Now that we know that, I was actually wanting to pick him because I looked at the other record of Sue, and I saw those 4 losses, and all 4 of those losses are submission losses. So I was hoping that Adeshev had some sort of background in that, because I was looking in my lineup for an underdog. I needed an underdog. I see the submission losses. I go to Adeshev. I'm like, damn. He just didn't do it for me. So I stayed away from this one completely. But I think it's justified to look at him at what it was $6,900 with a kickboxing record, and it sounds like it's going to be a striking match. So I mean, you never know. It could be a live dog here. Yep.
Yeah, that's the route. That's the route I'm going. I mean, he's so cheap. I don't know if I bet real money on it, but certainly for a DraftKings lineup.
So you have Adeshev in your lineup?
I don't remember my lineup. We'll look at it in a minute.
As he's putting Adeshev in there. After he looked up the great kickboxing experience. Right. Oh, Dan, good point.
I can't wait to watch his back and see his eyes light up when he pulls it up on his browser,
I can't wait to see Angelo's lineup at the end of this and then watch back all of his analysis.
It doesn't line up at all.
Right. I would never pick Adeshev. He's got 3 wins. All of a sudden.
So next up is Ricky Simon versus Gaetano Paello.
I think it's Simone.
I don't give it. Gaetano, that's my people. That's my people. Right. Okay? He's like an Italian Russian. So this is a pretty straightforward matchup. So Paello is a striker through and through. I mean, he's stand up, top to bottom. That's his thing. He's basically a throwback to the early days of UFC. He took this on short notice, and he hasn't fought in a year. So I do think this is a lock for Ricky, but the Guido in me is rooting for Gaetano. But I don't. He's a striker, and you always have a puncher's chance. But a year layoff, short notice, versus somebody as well-rounded and streaky as Ricky, I just don't see it happening. Jacob?
Yeah, I just want to I've never seen a bigger lock in my life. And I'll go on record and defend that if it doesn't happen. I want everyone that watches this to watch Gaetano's last fight on YouTube and watch the level of competition that he's been fighting. Maybe he hasn't been fighting that for a while, but his very last fight a year ago was against someone that was throwing strikes like Ben Askren, but a little bit worse, just coming at him. So this is my lock. Take Ricky Simone all day.
Jacob, I like your stance on that one. I agree. I think Ricky Simone is a lock. Angela, I actually want you to screenshot your lineup before we continue on with this, because the last comment, I don't remember my lineup. It's going to be interesting to see what it is at the end of this. So I've got mine screenshotted. We'll all share ours together. Jacob, Angelo, and the 3 of us will share via group text message our current lineup.
Well, mine's already in the YouTube short, so I'm already up. I'm already verified.
Yeah, Jacob's been uploaded.
Oh, you're already on YouTube. Okay. Angelo, I want to see yours, because all of a sudden we're going to see Ricky Simone in there. We're going to see Adeshev with his K1 experience. The 3 of us are going to tie next week is what's going to happen for first, obviously.
Yeah.
Wow.
It would actually probably just automatically stagger it and make me first, you second.
Oh, just based off.
And Jacob would still somehow get 4th, even
Angelo,
though we all have the same score.
Did we mention that Angelo hasn't won since September?
Yeah.
it's Jacob, there's a pandemic going around. It's been a tough run for him. I mean, it affects everybody in different ways.
That is 100% true. And hasn't won since doesn't necessarily apply to you, does it? So I think.
Anyways, I agree with Jacob. Ricky Simone, I think, is a lock. I'm actually going to put some money on another bet on one of the betting websites. I think it's just a different level of skills and competition. I also watched Gaetano's last couple fights. He looks tough, but yeah, Ricky Simone is legit, and I think there's levels to this, and Ricky Simone is on a different level. So
your two bets are both giant favorites.
So far, yeah, I have Dolce. Send me your lineup, please. I have Dolce, Ricky Simone, and Mike Davis. Those are my three so far.
You bet Mike Davis. Okay. Just staring, squinting, super close. All right.
Heard the breeze go right by you for those 5 seconds of silence.
So Omari's lost to Chris Weidman in his last fight. That was a must-win Weidman fight. I've actually never been happier. I love Chris Weidman. I was very happy for him to win that fight. Omari should have won that fight, was supposed to win that fight, and Chris Weidman did everything he was supposed to do and turned it into a wrestling match and won that fight. So Breese has nice power. He has solid boxing, and Omari has solid wrestling and pretty good boxing. I'm expecting Omari to win this fight. I think his wrestling, while it wasn't as good as Chris Weidman's, it's definitely much better than Tom Breese's. I expect him to bounce back with a decision wrestling win. In DraftKings, I don't remember if I picked him or not, but takedowns are worth 5 points in DraftKings. Like, you don't want a wrestler when you're.
All right, let's just stop this right now for Angela. Post your lineup on here right now. You can edit it out after if you want.
Here's my lineup.
Let's see your lineup. Hold it up to the screen. There's just a lot of funny business going on here.
I haven't touched it. Here's my lineup. Hold on. Here's my lineup.
This for the record.
Everybody relax. Just give this 30 minutes to load.
All right. Wish we could see like the
Here's
edits,
my lineup, okay?
like a timestamp of the edits, and we'll just see over the last 10 minutes how many changes he made.
Here's my lineup. I have Umar. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Everybody happy?
Oh, he's got Ricky Simone too.
Oh, look at that. Huh?
Failed to mention that.
So I definitely have Omari, but I just think he pulls it off. The reason with the new control time rules. It's obviously DraftKings paying you out for control time, and takedowns are 5 points. 5 points is a lot of points. There's nothing else other than a knockdown that scores more than half a point on a single move. So, 5 points for a takedown is a big deal. He's a solid wrestler, and the key is when you're picking wrestlers in DraftKings, if you get a wrestler that takes you down and you never leave the ground, that's not a lot of points. If you get a wrestler that takes you down, you somehow squirm your way back up and he takes you down again, that's how you score some points. I think Omari's that guy. So I went that direction over Tom Breese, who's a British boxer, and the Brits, unfortunately, don't have great takedown defense. Jacoby, who are you going with?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you, and I didn't even know about the wrestling. So I watched Omari, and the fight that I watched him in was against the middleweight's new darling, Vettori. And he took Vettori to a draw. And Vettori is the one that's been killing everyone and is calling out the champs. And what I saw in that fight was Omari marching forward and throwing bombs. So he was a late addition to my lineup. I looked at 70. I was looking for another underdog when I was making my lineup at 7,500. A guy that throws bombs and took one of the toughest dudes. That's considered one of the toughest dudes in the division, Vettori, to a draw. That's what I saw, and I immediately actually switched my lineup from something we'll talk about later to him because I was a little bit more confident in his abilities. I didn't see anything on Tom Breese. I didn't watch anything. I was just comfortable with what I saw from Omari. And then when you mentioned his wrestling on top of it, then that just is icing on the cake for me.
Yeah, and he's not like he's not a world beater wrestler, but he certainly has solid wrestling, and he can take it there when he needs to. And the Weidman fight's a perfect example. Weidman's a very good Division I college wrestler who uses his wrestling in MMA, and he out wrestled and outclassed Omari, but Omari can wrestle and he knows how to wrestle and he uses wrestling in fights, and I think he will here too. So, Dan, while I refill my drink here, what are your thoughts on Omari and Tom Breese? I think Omari takes it. I think his wrestling, while not the best wrestling in the world, it's certainly better than a British boxer's in Tom Breese. What do you think happens in this fight?
Yes, I looked. This is actually the last fight. I was starting at the bottom, going to the top, that I was able to get some tape in on. And I saw Tom Breese, really good striking. It looked like he KO'd his last guy with a jab. So I'm assuming he's a pretty solid striker. Omari, I saw he lost to Weidman, but if I'm remembering that fight right, it was like a do or die for Weidman. So you got to imagine he came out as 100% prepared, and the guy was a world champion. So in the rest of his record, though, he fought Vettori to a draw.
I mentioned that earlier.
Okay, yeah, I missed what you guys said.
While you were gone.
Yeah, well,
I got all the good.
Shows you're on the right path, Jacob. Shows you're on the right path. He beat Abdul Razak Al Hassan. That dude throws bombs. And he somehow quietly has like 15 fights in the UFC. So I think he's a live dog. He's one of the guys I'm considering putting in for one of my my underdog picks. So I'm in between two guys. He's one of them. So yeah, I think he's game in this one.
You're talking about Tom Breese?
No, I'm talking about Akhmedov.
I think we're all in agreement on how we feel about Omari.
All right. The next fight is Lerone Murphy versus Douglas Silva Andrade.
Is this? I think we're moving to the main card now. Is that correct?
Main card, yeah. Yes.
Well, I think we missed. There's Schnell and Nam is still prelims, so this is out of order.
Jacob, we have an order, a cadence right in front of us that we're following.
It's a freaking list, dude. It's a list.
Please try to follow the rules that Angelo put in place.
Yeah.
The format.
Unbelievable. I'm just gonna put a black bar over Jacob.
I have to raise my hand talk from now on.
Next.
Can the moderator mute the guest?
You just see. This is what you see of my video. It's just unmuted.
It's like first take. What is it? First take?
Yeah, it's just him. Yeah, him.
You run out of time. You're done.
And I do a voiceover with his stupid Indiana accent. So the next fight is Lerone Murphy versus Douglas Silva Andrade. So I don't know a ton about Murphy. I know he's a stud. I know he's good everywhere. He's a genuine stud. Like they're relying on him to be the next big thing. He's got a ton of power, especially for that weight class. But I love Douglas Silva. He's just lightning fast, just comes out, guns blazing, and he's just an animal. And I love it. I just love the fight style. He is a big underdog. Let me check the odds real quick. Yeah, he's a 250 underdog. So this means, if you don't know how to read betting odds, plus 250 means if you bet $100, you would win 250. And then Lerone Murphy, or Lerone, is minus 300, which means you would have to bet $300 to win 100. So he's a 3-1 favorite. I mentioned earlier that who was my big? Akhmedov is a big a live underdog. Morozov is a live underdog, and I think Douglas Silva is a live underdog in this fight. Lerone Murphy should win. He's the better fighter. He's better all around. He has more power, but Douglas Silva just doesn't care. And I think he's going to come out guns blazing and throwing heavy, and I'm rooting for him. Jake, I'll unmute you for this.
Okay, I appreciate that. So this is what I see when I look at lineups. Like I said earlier, I look for unconventional things. That's what makes me a champion. That's what separates me from the rest. I see an undefeated fighter, and that almost worries me because sometimes undefeated fighters have never felt that they've never felt being hit before. They've never felt that adversity. So I looked at his tape immediately to see how he is, and he's very confident, very loose, like you would expect from an undefeated fighter. But then you look at his draw. He has a draw. So he drew against Turkagov, which is an incredible wrestler, incredible fighter. I watched the tape on that, and he got dropped. And he got dropped pretty bad.
Who did?
Murphy.
By who?
By Turka in his draw against Tukagov or whatever, the Russian. He got dropped. He ended up on his back. And for an undefeated fighter, that's kind of a fight or flight moment to me. It's the first time. I don't know if it was the first time. Maybe it's not. But as an undefeated fighter, you would think that's a very rare thing to happen. And he immediately pulled guard. Or I'm sorry, did not pull guard. The guy tried to jump on him. He's a wrestler. He got back to his feet, and he stayed in that fight. And from what I read in the comments, it was a draw, but he shouldn't have got a draw. So it sounds like he was beat on pretty good. He maintained his perfect record. But when I see undefeated and you match it with that kind of toughness on top of his skills in the octagon, he looked loose, he looked confident, in and out. So I like him. I have him in my lineup. When I looked at a little bit of Silva de Andrade. Looked stiff to me. I don't know if that's just from what I saw. Just kind of standing there, and the other guy's kind of loosey goosey, willing to get in and out. So that's why I have Murphy in my lineup.
All right, yeah. I didn't see the Tugov fight, or at least I don't remember it. So that was some solid insight there.
Yeah,
sounds surprised.
I'll be honest. I haven't had a chance to tape this one yet, but. Yeah, just looking at Silva de Andrade's record, his only 3 losses are Peter Yan, Rob Font, and Tukov. So those are 3 legit guys to lose to. Other than that, he's got 26 wins. So a lot of experience. We've got a bunch of UFC fights. Lerone Murphy looks like he's an up-and-comer. I think, Angela, you're saying he's got all the skills needed. He's a big prospect. So I got to watch some tape on these guys. I didn't touch it for my lineup just yet, but I'll probably look into them both a little bit more over the weekend and maybe make a different bet because, looks like Andrade has got a lot of experience against good guys. So 9-0 versus a guy with almost 30 fights, that's a big difference in experience.
Yeah, it definitely is. And he's been around the block, and he's older, and his body's going to start to wear out, but I still think he's got some juice. But I mean, Lerone Murphy's got power, and he's good everywhere. So we'll see what happens.
35. I wouldn't say he's older. I'm 35. I feel.
Yeah, go ahead. Go fight.
I feel old, actually.
Next up, we have Tyson Nam versus Matt Schnell. Tyson Nam has been like a COVID hero. He fought a bunch in 2020. And all of them were last-minute fights, but he wasn't on the wrong side of the last-minute fight. His original opponents dropped, people showed up, and Tyson Nam made the best of it. Let's take a look very quickly at how many that is.
Sounds like he's on the right side of the last-minute fight.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I meant he's not on the wrong side of it, meaning he wasn't the last-minute replacement. So he fought in June and again in September, and both of them were pretty early finishes, and both of these dudes were last-minute replacements, like very quick last-minute replacements. Tyson Nam is 37. He looks fantastic for 37. He's 37. He's been around the block. I just think his luck has sort of dried up here. Schnell is not a last-minute replacement, and I think Schnell pulls it off. I think, full camp, better fighter. I think Nam there's a lot of people that have made the best of their sort of COVID MMA opportunities. Tyson Nam's one of them, but full camp Schnell showing up, ready to fight. I think he pulls it off. I don't see Tyson Nam doing this. He's almost, he's 20-11. That's a lot of losses for somebody that hasn't fought the best people on the planet? Dan?
Jake, what you got?
Yeah, so this was one that I had originally picked out as my underdog. I'm kind of in agreement with Angelo as far as Tyson Nam. Just when you're looking at $8,400, anything over $8,500 in DraftKings should be a pretty decisive win. So he's right on that borderline, and it's kind of a coin toss betting favorite. DraftKings kind of favored him more than the bets. So originally I had Matt Schnell in my lineup. I had mentioned earlier with Omar Akhmedov that I kind of switched at the last minute after I saw tape on him. So I do like Matt Schnell. If you're building your lineup and you're looking for a live dog, I would definitely give Matt Schnell a look, kind of everything that Angelo touched on. So if you have anything to add to that, any more technical analysis?
Yeah. So you have Schnell in your lineup?
I do not. I
not.
did, and I switched it. So I would be comfortable with Schnell. And actually, we'll talk about it later, but I actually switched it and I didn't change anything else in my lineup. So it's not like I switched it to get an upgrade. I just happened to switch it. I would be comfortable with Schnell if for some reason Omari's fight were to drop.
It's actually pretty funny because I have him in my lineup right now, but real quick, just on the overall fight. So Tyson Nam, first thing that jumps out at me is he had almost 30 fights before he got a shot in the UFC, and it looks like he dropped his first couple to tough opponents. But his last two, he's looked really good. I did not know they were short notice fights, but he looked pretty good his last couple fights. Schnell, on the other hand, I know a little bit about. He trained at ATT for a while. I've heard he's very good. I don't think he's doing his training camp at ATT for this last one. But I know he's good. I watched his last few fights. Looks very good. The one thing I'd say that has me, so I have him in my lineup right now. I have Schnell in there as the underdog. I think he's got all the offensive skills to get a win here. His last fight, he fought Pantoja, and it was back and forth. They both look good, and he got clipped with an overhand right. So he's my kind of fighter. He goes in there, he trades in the pocket, doesn't mind getting hit a little bit, but against a guy like Nam who's going to wait and time that right hand, that's the only thing that concerns me. So right now I got Schnell in there. I think he can win, and if he doesn't, I think he could score a lot of points. The only thing that concerns me is if he gets clipped. So I've got him in there right now, but I'm also looking at Umar instead to replace him. So I'll be one of those two as my underdog.
Well, and what is concerning, I believe I have Schnell. What is concerning, I definitely picked him to win. I think he's in my lineup. His losses.
For the record, Angelo does not have Schnell, so let's just.
His three most recent losses were all first round knockouts. So he's susceptible for sure. All right. We only have a couple more here. We have Roxanne Modafferi versus Viviane Araújo. I didn't even need to look at this to do research. Roxanne's great. Couldn't be nicer. Had the upset of the century. What was that, 6 months ago? She's not winning this fight. She's just not going to. Roxanne is a throwback to the days of when you could be very skilled and unathletic and do well. Nowadays, you have to be athletic, right? Everybody knows how to fight. And now the athletes are also competing. Roxanne's just not an athlete. She's not amazing at anything. She's just very smart. So she has a high fight IQ, but that's not going to help her. It hasn't helped her in a while. So I just don't see Roxanne winning. I don't know anything about Vivian. I'm just going off gut here, and I'm picking against Roxanne more than I am picking for Vivian. Jake?
Yeah, so I know how you feel about Roxanne, and all credit to her for that big upset. And then also she's tough as shit. I mean, if you're looking for, how much is Roxanne is $7,100. She's probably not going to get finished. If it goes to the ground, she's shown that she can reverse positions and maybe get control time and stuff like that. You look at Vivian's finishes. She has I like to see not one-sided finishes as far as, one or the other. She has 3 submission wins. She's got TKO wins. She's got KO wins. Like I said, I don't think you're going to finish Roxanne. Also, I'm very unorthodox in how I choose. If you look at her last 8 fights, she alternates wins and losses in her last 8 fights. Talking about Roxanne. So she's went loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. Her last fight was a win. So she's guaranteed to lose this fight. Dan, do you agree with that? I think if you're alternating like that, that's just the way the world works.
Yeah, that's the type of insight that really
you a champion.
You make a lot of money at roulette, right? When you go to the casino, you've got that down.
You can't keep losing.
Right. So I didn't get to tape these girls yet, but I have Roxanne in my lineup right now just because she's $7,100. She's got a ton of experience. She's tough. Once I watch the tape, assuming Vivian Araujo is the better fighter, I still will probably leave her in there, just hoping she gets some points. But I haven't gotten too far into the tape yet on either of these two. But I'm hoping with over 40 fights and a winning record that she can hang on for 3 rounds and at such a cheap price tag put up some points. So
she's big too. She's big. You get her on the ground and she kind of, like I said, she's tough and she's big. So, I mean, you never know on the ground what can happen.
Yeah. I think she's a pretty heavy underdog, but I've got her in there right now as a value play. But I'm reworking my.
You're gonna rework. That's interesting. I
mean, well, I put all mine out there at least up front. So you're like, well, I don't remember my lineup every time.
Yeah, that's interesting. Very, very interesting. Oh yeah, ever since I heard Angelo's insight, I'm not positive if she's gonna stay in my lineup. Real interesting.
Angelo, trust me, your insight has nothing to do with my picks.
What about mine?
No, Jacob, that was never even in question.
Yeah. I think you're still on mute.
Yeah, the ungodly meat comment or whatever. At that point, I just kind of.
We only got 3 left, so the next is a fight: Isaac Villanueva versus Vinicius.
Can I precursor this one?
Yeah, these by all means. Why don't you go ahead and set this up?
Okay, Isaac Villanueva versus Vinicius Moreira Castro.
That's good.
Both bums. They're bums. They're bums. If you look at this fight and you look, click on Villanueva first. I believe he was a middleweight that tried to go up all the way to heavyweight in his last fight, and then the fight dropped. So then he fought at middleweight, I believe. back to light heavyweight. And
Jake, have you been in a fight in your life ever or no?
I've been in not on the winning side, but my little sister is tough. So this is back to light heavyweight. That Jordan Wright fight, that's the Beverly Hills Ninja. That dude is such a nerd. And it was a doctor stoppage, but it was a kick, and he's just kind of a stiff dude. I think he's a boxer. So you're looking at him at $8,200. This is definitely a coin flip fight. And I'm going to stay away from it completely because I had money that I can spend on one of these guys that I'm choosing not to. Because they are such bums. If you go back and click on Moreira's last fights, I believe he has 3 straight first-round losses. If you look at that, 3 straight first-round losses. I mean, so both these guys are just coming in this fight limping. I watched his fight versus it was one of those. I think it was his last fight, and I believe he looked like he was doing strong, but he was completely gassed at the end of the first round, completely gassed. And that's something you can fix. But both these guys, maybe you disagree with me, Angelo, but from what I saw, these guys are bums. I'd stay away from them completely.
I know nothing about either one of these dudes. I don't have any insight on this fight at all.
Yeah, I didn't tape either of these guys yet either. But yeah, no, I'm not going to call them bums. Jacob, you alluded to getting beat up by your sister. So you probably should not either. Either way, I don't know enough about either of these guys. I'll probably watch some tape on them, but neither of them are in my lineup at this point. So
it's a coin flip. I mean, if you want to take, for the value, they think it's a coin flip. So if you want to take a chance at a coin flip, I mean, they're definitely.
What are they both worth? 8,200 and 8,000. Is that what it was?
Yeah, it's 8,200 and 8,000. So I mean, if you got the money, I guess. But they're both limping in, both on bad streaks. If I was going to choose, I would pick Villanueva. Just the other guy seemed like he was gassy in the first, and Villanueva, he seems like he's had weight issues, but it seems like he's a decent striker. So if you had to choose, it's Villanueva. But I'm staying.
If you were in there with either of them, how many minutes do you think you would survive?
I would never go in there with either of them. So that would be negative minutes, and I would just take whatever penalty that is.
All right.
I go. I know nothing about either one of them, but just from being around it for a long time, a 3-fight first round loss streak that doesn't end. That's it. His career's over. Like that doesn't. You don't snap out of a 3-fight first round loss streak and then hit a win. It just doesn't happen. Am I wrong, Dan? You're shaking your head. Like 3 fights.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I just can't wait. If actually we get more than 3 viewers on this channel, the internet will always find whatever facts you're saying. You just don't come back from a 3-fight first round loss streak. I mean, they're going to send 50 of them to you.
Yeah, look at Saturday. I mean, Carlos Condit was like 3-8 in his last 11 fights, and now he's won back-to-back fights and looked great in his last fight. So
somebody else won a big fight last time that was on his way out. That was
wait, we just talked about Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman beat what's his name? But I'm not talking about 3-fight loss. 3-fight first round stop
finishes.
Right. I don't know. I got to watch some tape on both the guys, but
I don't know anything other than what Sherdog tells me. But
right.
The co-main is Munir Lazez versus Warley Alves. And I actually think I nailed that. What's interesting about this fight is Warley Alves is very good, but he fights to his opponent's level. So he smoked Kobe Covington. Smoked him. And Kobe Covington, you could argue, well, not argue, he was winning that fight against Usman. And then, you could argue the stoppage was bad, but he was beating Usman. So Warley submitted him. Straight up submitted him. The problem is he then has lost to some people he never should have even been fighting, let alone lose to. So he fights to the level of his competition, and that's not an uncommon thing in combat sports. That happens somewhat often. So I don't know much about Lazez, so I'm not touching this fight, but if I did, it would be more in my confidence in Alves than than about Lazez. Meaning, if Alves shows up, he'll beat him. He just will. And if he doesn't, if he fights to the level of his competition, but Lazez is good. Who knows? But he's a bit.
So your final analysis is Alves might win if he wins, but then he might lose if he loses.
And you could take that to the bank.
Okay.
You could take your EBT card, withdraw the money, and then bet on that analysis.
Let me jump in on the Alves thing, because you mentioned the Colby fight.
Let's get some real analysis here.
Yeah,
Jacob.
I mean, come on, man. We gotta find a replacement for this guy. Right. But Alves, I watched that Colby fight, and you said you used the word dominated. Colby had
smoked, is what he said.
Yeah. I mean, he went in on a shot, and the guy caught his neck, and he choked him out. There was nothing more than that. He didn't dominate the fight.
I'm trying to understand. All right, so hold on, just walk me through. If I get submitted on the first move I try, did you dominate me, or was that?
I mean, he jumped on the neck. He won the fight. But to me, if you're looking, we're talking about DraftKings points. The guy didn't dominate the fight. He didn't get smoked. He would have won. He would have won a finish.
Is not worth a lot in DraftKings.
So if you're
with
looking,
Jacob.
Yeah. So that's the first thing that caught my eye was he beat Colby. Holy shit, And then I rewatched. I'm like, hey, he beat him, but he just kind of jumped on the neck. Like you said, he's lost some fights they definitely should have lost. So I originally was going to choose him. I'm staying away from him. Then you look at the big favorite, $9,000. Anytime you look at big favorites, you want to know what they're all about. From the small amount of tape I watched from him, he's a counter puncher from what I saw. He was just standing there. He wasn't making a move. At $9,000, you don't want a counter puncher. You see he's got a lot of finishes there, so maybe it does pay off. But if you're looking at someone that is a counter puncher, and it sounds like this guy if he might be a wrestler. It's I don't know much about Alves, but I'm not spending $9,000 on someone that's waiting for someone else to throw a punch. That's just me. Dan,
that's a solid that's a solid tip, because especially when we're talking DraftKings lineup, you're right. Like,
it seems like every time I say something, you say that was a good tip. Thank you.
No, I mean, it explains how well you're doing.
When are we going to get Newell on here, right? We need Newell on here.
He'll have some actual insight, not this nonsense Jacob's limping through. But very quickly,
you get saying Colby got smoked by Worley Alves.
I don't know how getting submitted immediately isn't being smoked. Like, when did?
Well, then you didn't even say it, but then you defended it after Jacob said. You said he dominated. Dominated is like a thorough beating, proving that you're better everywhere. That's what I think of when I hear the word dominate. He caught him in a guillotine. Yeah. Colby shot, left his neck out, and he got caught. Excuse me. Here's my quick take on this. I haven't done a lot of tape on it yet, but I do remember very vividly Munir Lazez's last fight. He fought Razak Al Hassan, the power puncher, and they slugged it out for 3 rounds. And Munir Lazez literally took shots that would have knocked out probably anybody else in the division. Like, it was unbelievably impressive the way he took shots, and he gave him back. He hung in there, and he ended up turning that fight around after a first round where he was almost put away and won. He looked impressive. He looked really good. He was actually, if I'm remembering correctly, the guy that Dana White's son sent him a video and said, or Dana White's son's friend sent Dana a video and said, "Hey, you got to check this kid out. He's good." So he gave him a shot. First fight was Razak Al Hassan, and came out, delivered, got the win. So I think he's probably really good. Alves is tough. He's legit. I think it could be a really good fight. I didn't touch it for DraftKings just yet because I haven't gotten to the tape, but I think it's either going to be another coming out party for Lazez, or it's going to be a battle between the two, because I think Alves is pretty tough in his game.
Here's what concerns me. If you want to click on Lazez again, click on him. That picture concerns me. If you scroll back up to his picture, he's training with pads. That tells me he's not tough.
Weights, dummy.
It tells me he's not tough. That concerns me. I would stay away from him completely.
You clown. Those are weights.
Well,
you think those are football pads, Jacob?
I thought they were just body pads. You don't know. If you're doing hard sparring, then maybe you had an injury.
Circuit training with weights is what that is.
I would stay away from him.
He just has oddly shaped muscles. That could be it.
I think we're really showing people's backgrounds here now.
Right.
So the last fight here is the main event. We have Michael Chiesa versus Neil Magny. This is in my opinion, this is a tricky main event. Literally nothing would shock me if I woke up on Thursday morning and you said, or not even this is at 8 a.m. on Wednesday. If I woke up at lunchtime on Wednesday and you said Michael Chiesa stopped him, I'd be like, that makes sense. If you said Neil Magny stopped him, like, well, that makes sense. So this is a pick'em. I did not double up in my DraftKings lineup. I just don't think this is a war. I think Neil Magny wins. I think Neil Magny's looked great. He beat Robbie Lawler, and it was a shell of who Robbie Lawler is, but he beat him. He wasn't intimidated by the moment. He showed up. He moved around like a big Dominic Cruz, and he beat him handily. So I think Neil Magny pulls this off. Michael Chiesa is one of those guys. He's like a Tony Ferguson. Was never amazing, but then somehow one day just put together a whole bunch of crap and all of a sudden was pretty good and his record was solid. It's like, where the hell did this guy come from? But I just don't think Chiesa is going to pull it off. I think Neil Magny is peaking in his career at a better time. And I'm going with Neil Magny here. I think he has the better streak. I think he has the better wins recently. And I just think he's better coached and has a better game plan, and I think he'll pull it off. So I'm only picking Neil Magny for my DraftKings lineup, and I'm not doubling up this main. Jacob?
Yeah, so I see it the same way. I definitely think Neil's going to win. I have Chiesa in my lineup. Originally, I did not. I had that the fight I said do not take any of those guys. I actually had one of those guys in my lineup just to kind of maximize my money. Chiesa $7,900. I'm my lineup is going to end with $400 left over, and I took Chiesa just because I think it is a wild card. I think Chiesa could win. I think the thing that we're missing here is Chiesa is 3-0 since moving up in weight. He was at 155 and he was a huge 155. He's still a big 170. And I think the thing that bothers him is Neil is bigger. I think he's always kind of been the bigger guy in all his fights. And I think Neil's 6'2". Obviously they're going to be the same weight. Chiesa's 6 foot. So those are both big guys, but I think that bothers him. I think Neil is better everywhere. Ground and pound. I think Chiesa is too comfortable with his jiu-jitsu. From what I've seen, he's very comfortable pulling guard and he's very active in his guard. But Neil, I think, is just going to be on a different level. I'm not going to let him do what he wants to do on the ground. So I have them both in my lineup just because I think Chiesa could, pull something out. But I think Neil definitely wins this fight.
I agree. Solid point with the and you actually do have some decent insight. I don't know why your lineups are just absolute trash, but your insight is decent.
I'm still confused. Did you pick Chiesa or Magny?
I have them both in my lineup, but I think Neil's going to win.
Oh, okay.
I think there's
so
enough.
You doubled up. Okay.
Yeah, I doubled up. I think that there's just enough. I think they're both highly skilled on the ground.
Yep.
With the new scoring change, it's going to kill me, I think, because I'm still in the advances score points, which I don't think they do anymore. So that might hurt me in my mindset. But I think there's enough. I think they're both tough. I don't think either one of them could get a finish, but they're just
Dick, if you're acting like you're taking advances into consideration in your picks, you just said you pick by if you recognize the name and jersey color and others.
Right.
But now we're down to like the 0.2 advances or the 3-point advances. Which seems to be
sandbagging. That's called sandbagging.
Varying levels of analysis on each fight.
How do you feel, man?
I have Magny right now. I got to watch a little more on Chiesa. I know they're both really tough. I think they both have good cardio, if I'm remembering correctly. I know Magny has good cardio. He looked great against Lawler. He really impressed me against Rocco Marin. That was a great fight for him. So I think he's motivated. He's always in great shape. I think he's a 5-round fighter. So I've got him in there right now. I got to watch a little bit more on Chiesa because I know he's tough as well, but I have Magny in there right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the one point I was going to say with Jacob, I completely agree with Michael Chiesa being too comfortable with jiu-jitsu. You see that over time. There's plenty of people out there that have good jiu-jitsu, get a submission or two, and then don't even attempt to do anything else on the ground, right? They don't try to work back to their feet. They don't try to get it back standing. They just, I submitted somebody before, I'll do it again. And that's their downfall. I don't know if that's what's going to happen here, but Michael Chiesa is one of those guys. He has a couple of wild, ridiculous position submissions that he shouldn't have gotten and he did get. And that may end up being a problem in his career because he'll think he'll be able to do that in the future.
Yeah, and just to kind of defend his point, I say he's too comfortable in jiu-jitsu. I just counted here. He has 11 of his 17 wins are by submission. So, there's a reason why he is comfortable getting there. But I think with Neil Magny you don't want Neil Magny on top of you. I mean, you just don't. He will transition to full mount and then it's over. So,
sure. And listen, his 3-fight win streak is solid as hell. Carlos Condit, Diego Sanchez hasn't been anything in a while, but Rafael Dos Anjos is still pretty good. So those are 2 of those 3 wins are solid wins. So, I'm still going with Magny here. So that is our full card breakdown. That's our full card breakdown. It's an early card. It starts at, I think, 8 a.m. Eastern for the undercard.
Is that the undercard or is that the main card?
The undercard, I think, is 8 a.m. Eastern.
Right. Or Central,
so it's still a very early card in the day. It's on a Wednesday. I'm not expecting a ton of people to have eyes on this or jump into it. But if you're looking to build a DraftKings lineup and either bet money or do a free lineup to get comfortable with it, let's talk about our lineups now. So I'm going to go through mine very quickly. I went with Neil Magny. We just talked about this. I think Neil Magny pulls it off. And when you build a DraftKings lineup, you have to pick somebody in the main event. You're stupid if you don't. I didn't. I built my whole lineup. It was beautiful. I was comfortable with it. And then I looked at it again and said, oh my God, I don't have anybody in the main event. So I redid the whole thing just to get somebody in the main event. And the reason you want to do that is 5 rounds of scoring potential is a big deal. If you have heavyweights, maybe it doesn't matter as much because that's probably not going to go 5 rounds. And if it does, there's not going to be a lot of points. But 2 lighter guys, 5 rounds of scoring potential matters. I went with Neil Magny. I actually think he wins, obviously. But I think even if he doesn't win, he's busy. He moves. The new DraftKings scoring system scores every strike, not just significant strikes. And somebody like Neil who just throws stuff out there and is constantly moving, those are points that I wouldn't have gotten in 2020. So I'm going with Araujo in my number 2 slot here. Again, I mentioned this before. I'm not betting on Araujo. I'm going against Roxanne. I think Roxanne is durable, and in DraftKings, you want to chase stoppages. And I don't know if there'll be a stoppage here, but Araujo will be busy, will put up some numbers, and will beat on Roxanne. I think that's one of the biggest locks of the night. If you're going to bet a fight, I think that's a lock, but the odds are definitely not worth it. Then I'm going with Da Silva de Andrade. I mentioned this before. He's going to come out guns blazing. He's got heavy hands, ton of speed. He's fighting a very well-rounded fighter. I just think he pulls it off. We need underdogs when you're working with a budget here in DraftKings. He's a big underdog. As far as underdogs are concerned, I think he does really well. I think he can pull this off. And if he doesn't, he's definitely a volume striker and we'll get some points out of him. I'm going with Figueiredo. So he's the older brother of Davison Figueiredo. He's not as good as his older brother, but he's well-trained. He's well-rounded. And I think he pulls this off as well. It's his first fight in the UFC. It's his first fight at 135 pounds. But I still think he pulls it off. So I have him in my lineup. Ricky Simone, that's pretty much a lock. He's very expensive, but that's pretty much a lock. Gaetano is just a straight up striker, and I don't think he's going to pull it off. And then lastly, I have Omari Akhmedov. He's fighting Tom Breese. He is more well-rounded. He has grappling in his tool bag where Tom Breese does not. And the way the DraftKings rules work are a takedown is worth 5 points. So when you're picking a grappler, what you don't want, and the new rules sort of help this actually, but what you don't want is you don't want a fighter to take somebody down, hold them down the entire time because there's not a lot of points there. Where Omari has solid takedowns, he's going to take you down, but you'll probably or might get up. If you don't get up, it's because he stopped you. If you do get up, he'll take you down again, and that's 5 points for every takedown. So I actually think Omari Akhmedov is going to score me some solid points because of his wrestling. He will strike, but Tom Breese is the better striker, but no wrestling defense, and I think Akhmedov pulls that off. So that's my lineup. What I'm going to do here, Jacob, is walk me through yours, and I'll build your lineup as you walk me through it. So why don't you go ahead and let me know.
This is what we've all been waiting for.
Yeah, Jacob, why don't you go ahead, let me know what you've got going on here, and we'll build your lineup on the fly.
Right. So first of all, let me start by saying I've never been so confident in a lineup. 2021 is a new year for me, and we're going to come out guns a-blazing. So what?
We came out already. This is the second fight of 2021.
And I did great.
Didn't win any money whatsoever. But
I did great. I was very happy with my performance. I was happy with how my guys went out there and performed. We're going to go back to the drawing board, and we're going to work on things, and I think we found it here.
Jacob's going to get 4th place out of the 3 of us somehow.
So the first thing I saw with this card is all the there's heavy favorites on this card, and it kind of threw off the flow of picking. So there's not a lot of pick 'em fights, which usually you can pick an underdog on that and feel good about it. 8,200 versus 8,000 or 8,300 versus 7,900. There's not a lot of those. A lot of these people are either $8,500 or $7,700, and then there's kind of lopsided. So to start off my card, I think Neil Magny wins. So I picked Neil Magny, $8,300. I think that's great value. Then I looked at the heavy favorites. Obviously, Angelo mentioned that you got to start kind of with the main event. You got to pick someone in there. So then I went with the heavy favorites. Ricky Simone. Everyone's mentioned it. We think he's a complete lock. The other guy just is not going to be ready for the level that Ricky Simone is going to bring. Then I'm looking at another favorite in the $9,000 range. I saw that LaRon Murphy. I mentioned him earlier. $9,200 on him, 3-1 favorite. D'Andrade, as we talked about it, I don't feel as good about this pick, hearing everyone else. 26-3 for $7,000. That's a lot of experience. To me, he just looked stiff. And like I mentioned with Murphy, he just seems like a tough dude. He's seen adversity in his undefeated record, and he's risen above it. So I like him. My lock of the week is an underdog pick. That's Victoria Leonardo. I think both you guys stayed away from her. I think she's tougher than the other girl. The other girl looked a little wild to me. I have written in here that she's tough, good ground game. It looked like in the fight I watched, she has good defense and good offense on the ground. So if she can get it there, I think she's got the advantage. My lineup kind of switched. Originally, I mentioned I had Matt Schnell. I do not have Matt Schnell anymore. In my notes here, I have written that he has a plethora of submission wins, arm bars, triangle chokes, guillotines. He has an inverted triangle. So if he can get that fight to the ground, that's not a bad pick versus Tyson Nam. I switched it up. I mentioned earlier to Omari Akhmedov. Just that draw versus Vettori sold me on him. He throws bombs. I think he's a live underdog, and I think he performs well. And then to round it out, originally I had that light heavyweight fight, and then I saw the first round losses. So I was looking to where I can spend my money. I'm going to end up with $400 left over because I went and doubled up the main with Michael Chiesa. I figured a lot of people would choose Magny. I didn't think a lot of people would double it up, so I think that might give me the advantage there in doubling up the main. So that's my lineup. I have $400 left over, so I might look to spend it. But like I said, I'm at 7,900. You add 400, that gets you to 8,300. If you look at the list, I have two choices. I have the light heavyweight. I can pick one of those people. So I'm just going to stick with Chiesa on this.
All right. Well, we're definitely heads up. We're definitely heads up on a few of these. And what I forgot to mention with my lineup is I adjusted mine as well. I had Dalcha Lungi Mambula because I mean, he's a lock, and he's probably a lock for a stoppage. But that's when I realized I didn't have anybody in the main event. And that's when I rearranged the whole thing to get somebody in the main event. I may go against everything I just said. I literally called you stupid if you don't have anybody in the main event. I may rearrange to pick him up.
Here we go. And so begins.
I just got to wait to hear.
So begins.
I hear Dan's first. But
exactly.
My original lineup, I did have Dalcha. I just feel like there's a stoppage there.
He is ungodly meat.
So much meat. But I ended up with Neil. I wanted somebody in the main, but I just want to throw them in there. So Dan, let's build. The champ is here. Probably second place.
The champ is here.
Let's build your. I'm not adding.
All right.
The champ is here.
So I'll make this pretty quick. So first one, I got Mike Davis, trains at ATT, good striker, very athletic. His only two losses are to really tough guys. Gilbert Burns, I think he took on short notice, and a tough fight against Sadiq Youssef. I think he's just on another level than Mason Jones. That's number one. I got Dolce in there as well. Angelo, I'm sure you'll be following suit, so we'll be heads up there. You cheater. So yeah, I got him in there. I think he's gonna clip Perez at some point. He's really powerful.
What's interesting, real quick, sorry to interrupt here, but his average points are only 56.
He's got two fights in the UFC. One time he got stopped, and the other time I think he knocked the guy out in the second or third round. So, and the guy he lost to, I forget his name right now, but he's legit and he's good. But if you watch his tapes over when he was fighting I think in South Africa, I think the guy's legit. The only thing that has me a little bit concerned is the weight cut, but I see him catching Perez at some point. He's very explosive and I think too powerful. Number three, I got Magny in there in the main event right now. I think that could be a close fight, but I think Magny's got the conditioning and he's turned a corner lately. I think he's going to pull out that one. Even if it's a 5-round decision, I think he'll get some points at $8,300. Not that expensive. So I've got him in there. I've got Roxanne in there for my kind of value play at this point. I'm hoping she can hang tough for 3 rounds. I don't think she'll win, but hopefully at $7,100, she can put up some points and maybe pull something off. Who knows? My other value play, I have Schnell in there right now. I like I said in the beginning, I'm back and forth between Schnell and is it Omari or Omar? Akhmedov, right?
Omari Akhmedov, yeah.
Right. So I'm in between Schnell and Akhmedov. Right now I have Schnell in there. I think I'm going to leave him in there. He's legit. He's good. So, the thing about Nam is he'll wait for that big right hand, and Schnell doesn't mind getting hit. So that's my only concern. But I've got Schnell in there at $7,800, and then my last one is Ricky Simone. I think he's just also on another level than his opponent. I think he's gonna finish that guy Perello. So Perello looked tough, but Simone's on a different level.
You keep scrolling past him. There you go. It sounds like we're kind of similar then, going back and forth between Omari and Schnell, because I think I had Schnell and I switched to Omari, and it sounds like you might have had Omari and switched to Schnell. I don't think you can go wrong with either guys. I think they're both going to perform.
Yeah, I'm going to dig in a little bit more, watch some of their fights, and it's going to be one of those 2 guys.
So we all have Ricky Simon. 2 out of 3 of us have Akhmedov. What is interesting is only Jacob doubled up the main, and we'll see if everybody else in the league doubles up the main. That's become a trend. Earlier when we started this, people didn't do that. And then as the year went on and some of these main events really dragged out and scored a ton of points, I think Casey was the first person to double up the main, or he won with a doubled up main, and then the rest of us sort of followed suit. And then Dan, you broke it down pretty nicely when you said when you double up the main, you basically average the cost of both fighters. So, and that's not a bad way to look at it, especially you get 2 extra rounds. So the way the DraftKings scoring works is if you win a decision in rounds 4 or 5, it's worth what is it worth?
The stoppage is 40 and 4 and 5. A decision is 30.
A stoppage is worth 40 points and 45. So it's only a few more points than round 3, but it's still more points. So anytime you can get extra rounds of scoring and stuff like that, it's great. So these are our lineups. Join us. We have a fan league. Join us in the fan league. Try to beat us. We'll figure out what to do if you do end up beating all of us. But if not, thanks for watching.
And if we make changes, Angelo, right, we're going to post our final
whatever
tomorrow or what?
I
think I'm probably going to leave mine as is, but those 2 swaps I talked about, I might do. And I know you're going to just change yours to whatever.
Mine's going to look.
It'll be a nice combination between mine and yours, Dan.
Right.
You'll
yeah.
See.
Well, regardless of the nonsense coming out of them, weigh-ins are tomorrow. So we're filming this on Monday. Weigh-ins are on Tuesday. The fight is on Wednesday. If there's a drop or a COVID issue or anything like that, we'll update our lineups. If not, this is mine, and this is Dan's, and this is Jacob's. Comment down below. I'll respond to everything. We all will. If you have any questions, let us know. Thanks for the watch. Hit subscribe. We will be here every single week for every single fight with this insight and more.